Hi, this is Phil Hinton and welcome to our first series of tutorial videos. In this series we'll look at flat panel display technology and walk you through the basics to what an ISF calibrator can do for your TV. Our presenters are Neil Davidson, AV Forum's technical advisor and ISF guru with years working for the custom install business. Graham Goodburn has over 20 years of technical work with the BBC and Fujitsu, and Graham is a true display expert in every sense. And Steve Kemp, or as forum members will know him, Bunches. Steve has been calibrating TVs most of his life and is an ISF calibrator for TLC broadcast. So with the team in place, Neil will take us through our first subject: what makes a great picture?
Hi everyone, I'm standing here in front of a wonderful display with a beautiful calibrated image in front of me. Now later on in these series of tutorials we're going to talk about display calibration and what that actually means to the display performance. But first of all, it's very important to explain exactly what goes into making a great picture. Now, the first element that goes into making a great picture is the black level. Now, what we have on the background here is a test pattern that very simply lets me explain these various properties. And the black level is the darkest part that you can see in any image. The darker the black level, the more 3D your image is going to be, becomes more lifelike. The second most important aspect of the image, of course, is the opposite of the black level. It's our white level. The white level explains the peak light that we can get from the display, basically lets us know how bright a picture we can get. The difference between the blackest point and the whitest point is the contrast ratio. Something that you'll hear explained very often on every spec sheet. The contrast ratio is a very important parameter because that defines the dynamic range of the display, the difference between the darkest parts and the brightest parts. Again, the bigger the difference between the darkest and the brightest parts, the more 3D your image is going to be. It has a big impact on the picture quality. Now, the next thing that we want to talk about is colour and colour accuracy. Now, the first most important parameter is the saturation of the colours, or how vivid the colours are on the screen. What you can see on this calibrated display is that our colours look fantastic, but they're not looking artificial. They don't pop out of the screen, which is a common problem if you have too much saturation or emphasis on the colours. The next thing that's very important and people are becoming much more aware of when searching for a good display is that the colour primaries and colour secondaries must be very accurate. Now, the colour primaries of a display are green, red and blue, and all of the other colours that are displayed on your screen are simply made up by mixing different quantities of the red, green and blue colour primaries. The next things that you see in this particular test pattern are yellow, cyan and magenta. These are known as the colour secondaries, which are made up of mixing combinations of the colour primaries in equal amounts. And then of course you have white, and white is made by mixing all of the colour primaries together in the correct ratio. Now, a lot of controls, for example the Pioneer TV that we have in front of us just now, are coming with controls which allow you to actually change the appearance of the colour primaries. Now, this is very important because when the material is being mastered in the studio, there are a set of standards which are followed that describe exactly what these colour primaries should be. And if we can match that in our display at home, it means that we have a much more accurate, lifelike picture than we would do if we had artificial looking colour primaries. The final part of colour accuracy is something that surprises a lot of people when we explain it to them for the first time. It has nothing to do, as you can see, with colour. It's actually the shades from black to white. Now, this is something that's called the grayscale. Basically, as you can see, moving from black to white through different shades of grey. What we need is the display to have the same relative proportion of red, green and blue colour primaries in all of these grey steps here. If we don't have that, you'll find that the colours, as you move from a dark colour to a light colour, will actually change slightly and they look very unnatural. Now again, there is a standard that describes what colour these patches should actually be, and again, if we can follow that standard on our home display, we can make sure that we have the most accurate picture possible. It looks much more lifelike and is much closer to what the director of the footage intended us to see in the first place. Unlike 10 years ago, when everyone just had terrestrial TV to worry about, we now all have a multitude of different sources in our house. We have an example here with a PlayStation, a Skybox, and a separate Blu-ray and DVD player. Now, each of these devices will output a different black level, a different white level, and will have slightly different primary colour outputs. Now, what that means is that, of course, if we don't do anything to correct for that in our display, we'll see slightly different pictures from all of our different sources. To make it even more complicated, each of the sources actually outputs in slightly different formats with slightly different sizes. Sky HD, for example, you have 1080i material and you have 576p material, just to confuse things altogether. Now, what we will do in the rest of this series of tutorials is we will explain to you exactly how you can correct for these outputs and your sources to get you the best picture possible in your home.